everyone to Deal Diary. Today I have a very special guest and very distinguished guest, honestly. Seasoned Vice President SBA Officer in Integro Bank, Naskeh Habibi. Welcome to Deal Diary.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. Yeah.
Honestly, Ella and I are so thankful to have you, and even more thankful to have you as part of our deal team.
Yeah.
It was literally love at first sight when we met you.
Likewise, same. I love you guys, and I think now it's more than just a business. It's evolved into a friendship. So I'm so excited you guys came to me, and I'm excited to continue to build that relationship and follow your journey. So.
Likewise. So, Naskeh, I would love, before we jump right into the world of SBA, you have such a rich background. I mean, across reputable institutions like Wells Fargo, Bank of the Pacific, bringing your invaluable expertise. Can you share your journey? How did you start? How did you end up at Integro Bank? Enlighten us.
For sure. So I actually got into banking really, really early on, around 18 years old. I moved to Colorado, and, sometimes relationships don't work out. So I needed to find a job, and I literally just walked into a bank and said, hey, I need a job. And I started off as a teller and worked my way up to branch manager and then into business banking. And from business banking, went into commercial banking. And so I've done pretty much all of it.
Done it all. Yeah. Period.
Yeah.
We love to see it. And then why Integro Bank? How did you end there?
So I actually got out of banking in 2019. I was just kind of, feeling a little bit of burnout. And I think for me, the biggest thing is I love working with small businesses. I love structuring deals. I like getting into the nitty gritty of things. Yeah. And I think a lot of banks have this box, and most small businesses don't actually fit in that box. Yeah. So when I saw this opportunity come up with Integro, I was like, this is where I need to be. I can actually jump back into banking, but not just jump back in, but I can work with small businesses and true small businesses. Small businesses are never, they go through, their ebbs and flows, and there's sometimes periods where they have difficulties, and a lot of these bigger banks, they see that difficulty, you're out of there. So,
one minor infraction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're like, sorry, you don't fit our box, you have to go. Whether it's industry, whether, you just maybe had a bad year because COVID happened to everybody, or maybe you had a fire and you had to shut down for a few months. So whatever it may be, the second you don't check that box, you're out. So with Integro, it just felt different when I was going through that process of really deciding if I wanted to get it back into banking. Yep. And I was like, yeah, this is where I need to be. So
I think for Ella and I too, obviously once we met you, we were like, yes, immediately. But then I think even more so when you really delved into why the CEO of the bank started and what he's about. And after attending the events, we really saw that come full circle, which is why we were like, no, this is where we want to bank, and this is how we want to pursue this journey. Yeah. Can you shed some light onto a little bit on the CEO and how we started with Integro?
Yeah, I actually really love that was something that was important to you guys, because even myself as a banker, that was so incredibly important. And one thing, when he was, going through this process of starting a bank, he had noticed a lot of small businesses during COVID just being left behind. There wasn't truly a small business bank. So when he was thinking about starting the bank, his whole focus was, how do I make the biggest impact? Yeah. There's no, I could go work for a Chase or some of these other, bigger banks, but really the need is a bank that's gonna, help small businesses. And that was my whole thing was, he saw, especially in Arizona, there was just not the support during COVID for these small businesses. Unfortunately, a lot of small businesses went out of business, right? Yeah. And it was simple as saying, here's some additional funding just to get you through these rough times. There weren't banks that were willing to step up to the plate, and our CEO saw a need for that, and he stepped up to the plate. And I can see it every day when we're doing deals, where customers come to us and they say, well, Chase says they need X, Y, and Z, and we're like, well, COVID happened, so we can see why maybe this year you had a little bit of a shortfall, but we can see, 2021 you started picking back up and then really started ramping back up in 2022. So there's a story to be told.
Totally.
So yeah.
Speaking of all of those common challenges that are just it's not, mean, COVID happened. It impacted so many different small businesses.
Yeah.
So when the other small businesses are seeking financing, like how does Integro Bank like be creative? Because we talked about creating deal structuring and things like that. So like, how does Integro do it? How do you do it? How do you go about it?
So for me, that's kind of one of my favorite parts is when I have somebody come to me and say, hey, I don't necessarily have the collateral. And I say, okay, well, you don't have the, traditional, what we would consider collateral, right? The real estate, the equity in your home to put up to secure the loan. But what else can we do? So we'll look at, for example, life insurance. If you don't have that equity or you don't have a home or whatever it may be, that you can, go ahead and put your home up as collateral, we will look and say, you know what, why don't we, since there's a collateral shortfall, why don't we make that up with life insurance? So we find creative ways to, make up some of these, shortfalls that traditional banks would automatically say no to. We will look at those.
Yeah. And I think Integro and your guys' level of customer service even goes like far beyond just being creative with the deal structuring. It's just like, for Ella and I too, the reason why we're like, no, this feels good because we want to be able to like pick up the phone and call someone. I don't want to have to like dial 8 or star or pound 12 times just to talk to a human.
Sure.
So I think that is one thing that just like makes your bank and like why we're so excited to partner so special. When you're thinking about like in terms of approaching small business lending compared to other financial institutions, like other than the service, what else does Integro offer?
I think, like, for example, one of the things is just structuring deals very creatively. That's one of them.
Yeah,
the other thing, the other thing is also making sure that, if somebody comes to us in a traditional bank, if you don't have the perfect credit score, you missed a payment, something, they're not going to finance that, right? I think what sets us apart is we're going to look at the full picture. We have, we're going to think outside of the box. We're not necessarily saying there's more flexibility with our lending, but just more out of the box ways of looking at things. For example, the collateral shortfall, the credit, if you missed a payment, well, what happened? Did you go through a life event? Did you, was there a family emergency? Was there something that could explain away that this was not, a reoccurring, that this is not something that's going to continue to reoccur, right?
Shortcoming that we can be predictable.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's just part of being human, part of being a business owner. You're going to go through these situations where it's not always so black and white, You're going to have family, things that come up and maybe you forgot about a payment, and that's where we come in and say, okay, we can explain that away. Send it to us in an email and let's keep moving forward.
So taking that into consideration, how do you decipher what really determines like creditworthiness then? Knowing that like humans, life happens, like what are the things that you actually like hold true each time?
Yeah, so for us, we're going to look at a whole picture, right? Are you somebody that, typically has made your payments on time, you went through a hard time, COVID happened, things fell through, you didn't get the, proper support from your bank, so maybe things, just didn't, work out the way they needed to.
Right.
So for us, when it comes to credit worthiness, we're looking at the full picture. We're not just taking one element and saying, okay, it doesn't fit our box, goodbye. We're really looking at the individual, their experience, historically, what have they shown, and can there, when there are these things that come up, these minor discrepancies, can we explain those away? Is there a way to explain that? Okay, well, you missed a few payments. Well, we're not going to say, well, you're just not worthy of, credit, period. Sorry, goodbye. That's not how thin life works. So I think we just look at the borrower as a whole, the business as a whole, and we, determine, is this somebody that, typically is, somebody, they're going to make their payments. Did they have a life event? Sure.
Yeah.
Are we going to hold them to it? No.
No. And I think you made such a good point when you're talking about the whole picture, because there's so many, because Ella and I have networked with so many different like banks and SBA loan officers and things like that, where they have said, well, you will not qualify immediately for this SBA loan because what experience do you have in, let's just say, the plumbing industry?
Right.
But you're totally going to discount that this plumbing company has 15 employees.
Right.
And I've managed global teams.
Right.
And Ella is an entrepreneur and like has, all these other accolades that are actually going to move the business forward. So the fact that you look at that and like really take that into account, I think really resonated with us too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing too, like right now I'm working on a deal where the business owner doesn't have necessarily salon experience. He has other experience, though, managing at a high level, right?
Yeah.
So, and you have the, the cosmetology people that are doing cosmetology, and they have their licenses, and, they can do that service. You're just buying the business, overseeing it, and allowing, the employees to perform the actual work. So yeah, he doesn't necessarily have salon experience, but how much does that differ from what he's already doing and managing a team at a very, very high level under a tremendous amount of stress in his current job? So for us, you might not always have the industry experience, but do you have business experience, and how can we tie that into how this business is going to operate? And then do you also have certain key employees in that business already that are going to stay on, and can they, provide us these, their resume, and using those key employees' resume, do we determine that, well, you don't necessarily need the industry experience right now. There's a process in place for you to learn it. Is the owner going to stay on and teach? So we're not going to just say, well, no, you don't have
X, Y, and Z. Disqualified immediately.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, who can even own any business? Everybody has to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, unless you are going to say, well, every person that buys a salon has to have salon experience, where does that, how far back are you going to go? You know what I mean? Like, okay, where did that person start? So everybody started somewhere.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
Yeah, right?
Honestly, just to hear how you, even in our initial meeting, approach deals and how you think about things. I feel like we didn't do this, but I feel like we were almost virtually pinching each other under the table. She gets it. Yes, we can add value. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know anything about these plumbing, landscaping, whatever it is, these industries that we are dominated by men.
Exactly.
I just said we can bring some value, honey. So
and there's employees there. There's key employees there, and there's management there that's going to help you learn the business, over time. And then, now you understand what it takes to run that business. Everybody has to start somewhere.
No, I totally agree. Yeah. Speaking of starting somewhere and then having success, can you share some? I know we were briefly talking about it earlier.
Yeah.
An example of success stories where your guys' SBA lending initiatives have made a significant impact on local communities.
Yeah. So I would say there's quite a few deals we're working on right now where without our funding, they can't continue to hire people, right? One of the biggest impacts on communities is employment. So we are right now doing an expansion loan for a group of doctors, and without this SBA loan, they're not able to, go ahead and onboard these other doctors because they need working capital to hire these folks, right? They need working capital to hire not only the doctors, the nurses, the radiation techs, all these, the billing person. They need working capital to hire those folks, right? Yeah. And when you hire people, that's, you're increasing employment, and that's going to make the biggest impact on these communities, is really making sure that we're focusing, okay, what does our loan do? It's going to greatly impact. For example, this loan is hiring 16 new people. So, that's a lot of people. Exactly, and that's going to have a huge impact on the community. So, I think that's the way the SBA program is intended, and we're fully on board with that as a bank. Where some of these larger banks might say, well, we're not going to do it because of X, Y, and Z. Well, the SBA guarantee was designed to, for these entities that are in phases where they're growing, and they might, not have been in business 20 years, they're newer businesses, and they're expanding, and they're growing employment and adding value to the community. So we're living by that model.
We love to see it.
Yeah.
So what are the things, like Ella and myself, that are by no means yes, we're going to own a business, but what things are key financial strategies or best practices, if you will, would you advise people like Ella and I as we're considering to manage our finances and going through this journey?
Yeah, I actually look at you guys as an inspiration, and I think that a lot of people can follow your model. You guys are finding the right partners. You're advising with everybody. You're not scared to go out there and talk to the attorneys, talk to the CPAs, talk to the different brokers. You're literally talking to everybody, and there's no fear. Even coming and talking to different bankers and talking to myself as well, as one of those, partners that you're, trying to, really just gauge what do we need to know, and using us as resources. I think people can really follow your model. I mean, I sometimes don't think you guys give yourselves enough credit, but I love you guys, and you guys are, very inspirational in how you do things. You're not afraid. You're out there. You're asking the right questions, and you're really building a network around yourselves of these different partners, whether it's an attorney, whether it's a CPA, whether it's a business broker, insurance people, whoever it may be. You are like, or banker. You're building that network around you, and I would just say people should just follow your model. I mean, it's perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the journey is hard, and so to hear, people like you in your position, everything that you've accomplished, say that really means a lot to me.
No, and you guys are, the thing that is too is like, a lot of times I think bankers, even for myself, like you guys have accomplished so much on your own. So when you guys come to me, I'm like, oh, you guys are incredibly knowledgeable. And I think people should take that experience. Yeah, you might not be a banker, you might not be a CPA, but you have other experiences, and use that, and don't be afraid to go out there, because you in your own right, have had your successes. I mean, like I said, I look at you guys as an inspiration, so.
Thank you. Yeah. That means a lot.
Absolutely.
It really does. So, like as we continue to look ahead, what trends do you foresee in the small business lending industry? Such a mouthful. And how is Integro Bank really preparing to address these changes?
I think that after COVID, a lot of small businesses realized, that their bank is important, and that they have choices. And I think we're actually really on the front end of that. That's why we started the bank. And, we realized there's so many businesses that were, falling behind, that weren't fitting into these, larger institutions, their boxes. So I would say that people are realizing that they have options. They're more knowledgeable than ever before. With SBA, prior to COVID, people really hadn't gone through the SBA program. And then PPP happened, right? So a lot of people got familiar with the SBA. So I think people are way more knowledgeable around the SBA, around lending, around, all these different things. And they're realizing, hey, I have a choice. And I think Integro is on the front end of that. We're addressing that by just, starting the bank in itself to say, hey, people have a choice, and they're, at the end of the day, these larger institutions are not meeting those needs. So let's be that person for them.
I couldn't agree more. Now, in the terms of like this idea of like, I have a choice, can someone outside of Arizona come to Integro Bank?
Yes, if it makes sense, right? Okay. So if the deal makes sense, we will. Our primary market right now we're focused on is Maricopa County here in Arizona, because there was such a massive need for it, right? So when we started the bank, we were like, oh my gosh, like how is it that so many businesses in the state of Arizona are like falling behind, and they don't have somebody that's a partner to them. So our primary focus is Arizona, but we will do deals. I'm doing one right now that's closing Friday in Oregon.
Period.
So, and we do deals in California and other states, but if it makes sense, really, we will look at a deal anywhere. And if somebody calls us and they're in Florida and we can't do the deal, we're still happy to say, hey, let's just look at it for you real quick and see how we can just at least be a resource to you.
Come on, customer service. So if someone wanted to, what's the best way to reach out? Is it email? Is it phone? Like, how can someone reach out to you to say, hey, I'm in Maricopa County, or I would potentially like to explore your services, but I'm in X state?
So for me, I'm very texting, calling is the best thing. And I don't mind when people call or text me. I'm at the mindset that, somebody's calling me for a reason. And if I can be a resource, I'm happy to be that. So if somebody wants to reach out, text, phone is the best. And my phone number is 2. I'm like, wait, where is it? Never call myself. So 602-348-4552.
Perfect.
Yeah, so anybody can call me, text me if you have a question. I'm always happy. And especially if you name Ella and Chiara.
Yes.
I'm on the phone.
Mention Deal Diary, Chiara and Ella.
Yeah, I'm on the phone 100%.
Yes.
I'm taking those calls all day.
We'll put it in the show notes too, just so it's there.
For sure.
So people don't have to like pause. But thank you so much for being on. Like this, we've been waiting to do this with you since we met. So
I love you guys. I'm so excited for you, and I'm honored to anything you guys ask me, I'm here. So
we appreciate you. We love you.
Thank you.
Toodles, everyone.